Hey guys, Tom and Self here. Let's talk about weapon mods, specifically some that Respawn tried and didn't make it into the game. Just been going through the different weapon files, looking at stuff, and they've clearly coded and tried, tested lots of mods for the different weapons, and yet most of them, I think the majority, don't seem to have made it into the game. So I thought I'd cover a few of them, show you a few of the ideas from the recycle bin. Respawn seems to have taken a very different approach when it comes to adding more stuff to their game compared to a developer like DICE especially, who likes to add as many things as they can come up with into their games. In Battlefield 4, for example, there are hundreds of weapons, multiple suppressors, grips, optics, all that stuff, and a lot of it, if it has statistical variation at all, is fairly minor. Instead, Respawn said we want each attachment to have a very specific role and feel to it. Oh my, I'm getting off on a tangent here. This is a topic for another commentary. Let's talk about some stuff that didn't make the cut in Titanfall. I should caution that a lot of these were probably made when the game was in a much earlier state and didn't look quite like what it does at release. And for this, I'll just talk about weapons that I've already made a video for. The Archer rocket launcher at one time had a laser-guided mod. You know, the rocket goes where you point the laser, much like the SRAW does in Battlefield 4. Probably wouldn't have given the Titan pilot a heads up that you were targeting him. My guess why they took it out is because it would let you free fire the rocket, and therefore it could be used against infantry, and that might get a little silly. The files also list a Titan hammer or big kahuna missile. Slow moving but heavy hitting. I guess that just became the amped version, didn't it? I need to point out how absolutely hilariously slow moving this rocket is. It cracks me up every time I see it. And finally for the Archer was a fast lock mod, which I guess would just be a trade-off between lock-on time and damage. Thing is, the lock-on time isn't that long in the release, and you get into the whole needing to reload, giving away your position, and my guess is they figured that, well, it was going to be really hard to balance, and it wasn't going to be very unique, and so they got rid of it. With the XO16 chain gun, they were clearly experimenting with the idea of the accelerator. My guess is that the factory issue version had some version of acceleration at one point. In addition to the accelerator version that we got, there's another with an even higher fire rate. I'm guessing we wound up with the non-accelerator version and accelerator version as a compromise between all the different things that they tried here. And like a lot of these mods, it came down to being unique and being balanced, both from being too good or from being too bad. There's also a burst fire mod of 8 rounds. That's interesting. I'm not sure I'd want 8 rounds every time I went to take on infantry, though the minions do group up, it might be okay. I would expect it would be more an anti-Titan thing at that point, but the accelerator already serves that role, and so we see again, it doesn't really serve a unique role, and so they probably got rid of it. That's just my guess. And finally, a really interesting one, electric rounds. Better against shields and the vortex shields, but overall worse DPS. And there's even a comment in the code that suggests its intended use. When you find yourself in a 2v2 Titan situation, you can bring down the shields on one Titan, and, well, I'm not quite sure where it goes from there. They were probably experimenting quite a bit with how large the shield should be and how fast the recharge timer on that should be, and so this would clearly have to be balanced in with that. But focus fire is the way to go in Titan battles, and so, yeah, hard to see where this fits in, but in the end I think shields don't play enough of a role in the game for it to really be something you'd want to use. That, and you'd put yourself at a disadvantage in a 1v1 Titan fight. The official Titanfall wiki has some interesting comments about the development of the Sidewinder, and how it became essentially an assault rifle that shoots micro-missiles. The 2 mods we find in the code include a tank buster for more explosive damage against Titans. You can see why they took that out. Why would you want to need a mod for more Titan damage on an anti-Titan weapon? That's silly. And a stabilized warhead for lower recoil? Well, this is all about hip fire and random spray. It's hard to see how that fits in. There are 2 fairly basic mods listed for the mag launcher. First, high density, for more damage with a lower rate of fire. I'm guessing that probably paired with not being able to shoot the grenades as far. And high-powered magnets, more magnetic range but less damage. Yeah, that's the whole this is easier to use so it should have less potential effectiveness thing. Battlefield 4 did that. I'm glad Titanfall didn't go in that direction. But neither of those mods would change the feel of the weapon too much. You'd just still spam grenades at the Titans. So I can see why they didn't go with either of them. And balancing the high density ones could be a real mess. I mean, which DPS do you try to balance against? The average one when you include the reloads, because you're going to get more damage in each magazine, or the one just within the mag? You know, what do you want to do there? But for mods Respawn could try, what if the grenades just rolled across the ground instead of bouncing around all over the place? Maybe that would make it so you didn't show up on the minimap when you fired? That would be interesting. The mag launcher does have a certain resemblance to Team Fortress 2's Demo Man's explosive launcher, but the grenades detonate automatically much faster, and so you can't do a lot of things that they do in that game. Next we have the 40mm cannon. This got a lot of love. Splasher rounds, more explosive range, but lower direct damage. So let's see, that would be more effective against infantry, especially minions when they're all bunched up. You'd be sure to hit several of them at the same time. Right now it might take an extra shot with the regular 40mm, and the splasher might have cut that down a little bit. Yeah, not a huge change, and hard to see how it's really easy to balance. Next, there's a Tank Buster mod. And this is converting all the impact damage into explosive damage. At least as it is in the code right now, it would be incredibly overpowered. But at the same time, how is that different? Because if you still score an impact, you end up doing more damage with a Tank Buster. I'm guessing that would have to be paired with slower projectile speed. Not really sure what's going on here. And finally, there is the Mortar Shot, which is essentially 20% more damage, but only 10 ammo in a magazine. Well, that's an interesting trade-off to make, but there's something else in the game that already gives a damage multiplier, the Atlas's damage core. So the fact that this is doing that too kind of takes away from the uniqueness of that. And all three of these, while they're supposed to have their own roles, you don't use them any differently as far as I can tell. And it would be hard to tell which one you were up against because someone's just firing single shots at you. And so it still seems like the same old 40mm. So again, I can see why they said, not that unique, let's go ahead and get it out of the game. And ultimately, I think players would tend to gravitate towards the best all-around choice unless they knew exactly what situation they were going to be in. And for the charge rifles, surprisingly, there are no mods listed other than the amped version. I guess they found something they liked and didn't really feel like experimenting with it. Well, that was a quick look at some of the weapon mods that didn't make the cut in Titanfall. Let me know what you thought. There's certainly a lot more code, and we can talk more about this and speculate on why things got in and why things didn't, and some possibilities. Anyway, let me know what you thought of the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.